This week on New to You, Brain Candy, Part 3, An American in Paris. Hey everybody, welcome to the New to You show. I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. With me this week,
one of your other hosts, Keith Vincent, and
your other host, Julian Cage, and special guest,
Pat Rodriguez, Mr.
Pat Rodriguez. Welcome.
Good to see you, Pat.
Is Pat Rodriguez?
Pat Rowe is what we call him.
Pat Rodriguez.
Paro.
Rodriguevich. Rodriguevich.
Welcome, mister.
Welcome back, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me.
So we are a recommendation review podcast where we pick a topic. Everybody brings their recommendation to the table. It can be
based on that
an
topic.
Experience. It can be a piece of media.
Could be a recipe.
And then we spend an episode exploring it.
Could be a recipe for a sandwich.
That's right, that you eat in a certain country while reading a certain book and listening to a certain band play.
I don't get it.
Me neither.
All right.
So our first pick was mine, and then we went into Mister's, and now we're going to Keith's pick. So Keith, let's roll right into it.
All right, let's roll. Somebody brought up the topic of brain candy, which was, I think, is a really fun topic. You know, it's up for debate what it means. In general, it means, you know, something you can kind of just watch and not think about and just enjoy or consume. I don't think it doesn't have to be watch. It could be music. It could be whatever. But it's something that's like, you're not in it for the intellectual goodness of it. You're just in it for just to have flashing colors or just fun stuff that you can shut your brain off to. And last week, Mr. Mister brought in a video game, which I thought like, oh yeah, dang, I should have done. Because so much of my shut off my brain time used to be playing video games. So that would have been a good choice. So well done, Mr. Mister. Because it is kind of a double-edged sword because there are so many good things that fit that description, yet you kind of don't want to recommend something that you think is just kind of par. You don't want to recommend something where you're just like, I just switched this on, like Teen Wolf. I just switched this on and it just happens to me. I don't even have to, pay attention. In that way, it was a little difficult. And it's because of that I kind of went in an odd way with my pick. So I went with a movie from 1951 called An American in Paris. And the reason I picked it is because it is almost a masterpiece, but not. It's got all the pieces of the puzzle to be a masterpiece, but they just don't fit all together. And because of that, I consider it brain candy because it's just amazing. It's not in the pantheon of the greatest movies or the greatest musicals of all time because it has all the potential and just doesn't hit it. That's why my choice. That's why I choose it because I love watching this movie. I've seen it literally dozens of times. I've listened to the music hundreds and hundreds of times. Every time I'm just like, oh, there are flaws here, but I'm choosing to not wallow in the flaws. I'm just going to let this movie happen to me. And so that's why my pick is 1951 movie starring Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron called An American in Paris, directed by Vincent Minnelli, written by Alan J. Lerner. This movie is all ambitious. Every aspect of it is ambitious. And the heights that it reaches are amazing. In fact, I would argue that there aren't that many movies that I would put above it in cinematography. The lighting and the color, the way, and this is a pretty early color movie. You know, this was filmed during a time when filmmakers would still make the choice between like, I could jump through all the hoops and make this in color, but I'm pretty fine with just making it in black and white. So it's in this interesting time that we've forgotten where a lot of filmmakers still chose to film in black and white because it was just easier to deal with. Color was still, relatively new at this time.
So like a novelty.
Yeah. And it was still, and what was cool about it is there was still experimentation going on. So a movie wasn't just in color, it was in like, what are we going to do with the color? And that's one of the just amazing things that you would see in this movie. A little bit of a generalization of the movie is it's about an ex-GI, an ex-soldier from who fought in, I guess you would assume it's World War II because this came out in 1951, but the song that it's based on was written in, I think, 1928 or thereabouts.
It was like the Gershwin, right?
Mm-hmm. Gershwin wrote this. The song that spawned this whole movie was written like several years before the movie came out. Most of the songs that occur in the movie weren't written for the movie; they were written by Gershwin and kind of compiled. The lyrics were added by his brother George Gershwin to make it, sing-song. That being said, it follows the serviceman who decided to stay in France after the war and become a painter, or maybe he was already a painter, but he's there to just live the life of a Parisian and become a painter. Some of his best buds are also artists in their own right. He's got a really close friend who's a cabaret singer, played by George Gutteri. I'm going to butcher all the French names. I apologize. And his buddy who lives in an apartment across the street or across the way from him, a piano player. I forget the name of the character, but it's played by Oscar Levant. So what happens is, it's just following him kind of just living the day-to-day life in Paris as struggling as an artist. Meanwhile, just as his art starts to become a thing through a, kind of a lascivious relationship with a patron who decides to give him a leg up if with some strings attached, he falls in love with this shop girl who seems a little too young for him. There's a lot of baggage with this movie, and seeing it with modern eyes, that's one of the problems I find.
I felt like very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole film.
Yeah. It's his pursuit of his new female
19-year-old.
His child bride.
Yeah, that becomes the movie. By the way, she's also engaged to be married to one of his buddies, who's the cabaret singer. So there's that little complication. And also the complication of what happens with his patron, who he's kind of has a relationship with in order to promote his art career, which I think is a pretty modern, interesting, gutsy take on a character. To give him that kind of a flaw or that kind of a crutch is pretty forward thinking. Basically, what happens is he's got to convince her that he loves her, and she's got to realize it. While all this is happening, some of the most amazing dance sequences and some of the most amazing music written for movies occurs. Some of the classic Gershwin songs, I Got Rhythm, Swonderful, of course, American in Paris. These songs are like top 10 in the American Songbook, and they all come from the same source. It's pretty amazing. But I guess that's what happens when you take the greatest hits of Gershwin's and then put them in a movie. So getting back to the genesis of this, everyone was a fan of Gershwin. After Gershwin had died, he was like, let's make a movie that has this amazing song in it, American in Paris. We'd never found a way to do anything with it. They got the rights to do it by dealing with Ira's brother, George, and George is like, yeah, but if you want to do it, it's got to be all Gershwin. And the guy was like, oh, please don't throw me in that thar briar patch. That's how the movie was made. And then they got Vincent Minnelli, the superstar of grand musicals at the time, to direct it. And he's no slouch. But interestingly, during the filming of this movie, he was also dealing with the divorce of his wife, Judy Garland. They were getting divorced. So the story goes that actually Gene Kelly directed several sequences in the film because our buddy Vincent had to go to the divorce court and stuff.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's the people's court. Come on. I had mentioned earlier that this movie is all about shooting for the stars, shoot for the moon in just the biggest ambitions you can imagine. So they got the greatest dancer of the time, Gene Kelly, to come up with the most amazing dance sequences and to really from an art and that's the other thing about this movie is it's film is an art, no kidding. But what they were really striving for in this movie was art, like a painting that you can watch. If you read anything that anyone associated with this film had to say, they would agree that was the ambition of this movie.
There was a couple of scenes like that too.
Yeah, they wanted to have this is a moving painting.
Yeah.
This is and they're going to have the highest form of ballet at the time with the most modern jazz dancing that they can do with the most amazing, at the time, everyone's favorite modern day composer, Gershwin. And so the film culminates in fact, there's no dialogue for the last probably 18 or 19 minutes. I'm forgetting how long the last musical number is.
Yeah,
but it's 20 minutes. Yeah. And there's no dialogue. And the song, as soon as that song in American in Paris finishes, that's the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. There's no coming out of it as if that was a fantasy scene. It was just no, that's what we were building up to. Is this culmination?
You come out of it because it's fantasy, and then she runs out of the car, and they get together.
No, the end is the rose, and the zoom, and the camera zooms into it. The end.
The one I
What?
watched had the ending was like her
She shows
coming
up.
back to him,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like she gets out of the car and comes back to him
I think that happens before the musical
No,
sequence. No,
that was
Oh.
the last thing. Like
because she's driving
she,
off.
She
Yeah,
has like a white dress on,
yeah,
and like no words are spoken. It's
Yeah,
just
so
like-
it's still there's still no dialogue. Yeah,
right,
and it's
right.
like it's weird.
It is weird. The whole thing. I mean, yeah, the whole thing's like an art piece, but at the same time, like man, everybody's just creepy. He's like stalking her.
Mhm.
He like took her phone number.
Hey,
He's,
that's
like,
love.
showing
That's
up.
love, man.
Yeah, I think.
And then,
Yeah, my like for me, I love the music.
Yeah.
But like for musicals, this is the type of musical that I don't like, where it's like we're gonna take these awesome Bob Dylan songs and make a musical about relationships at a circus and recontextualize these songs to fit this
Write
narrative
this down. Write
that
this
we've
down.
like hewed
No, it already
together.
happened.
Oh man.
Like so you just get these like shoehorned in, like Glee was the TV version of this, where you take pop music of the time that everyone loves and attach either like the obvious one-to-one, like this is the most surfaced reading of the song, and here's like this is a love song, here's a love relationship, boom, attach, here's our scene. And with this stuff, it was like even the lyrics didn't always like, they were just kind of like here's an awesome song and an awesome set piece. It's really more like a series of music videos
Yeah,
strung
sure.
together.
And they would all admit that, I'm sure.
But I would have just, yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like you just don't even need the narrative. You don't like, it's so like it's pretty pat and
yeah,
like
but without the
straightforward,
narrative,
and
this would have just been a PBS piece, and we wouldn't have ever seen it.
that's
So that's the
fine.
thing is like you need I mean,
But see, I don't think
to,
that
to say that like
It's not
they should have
elevated,
just
is what I'm
strung
saying.
together a bunch of music. That is kind of what they did, and they glued it together with this haphazard love story.
That's part of what makes it brain candy. Is that it's kind of like, don't think too much. Here's some songs.
Yeah,
right. It's not. It's
Some
not. It's
dance.
effortless to watch through. But it's. I guess what I'm saying is that it's not like it. The narrative doesn't add to the experience, in my opinion of it. Like you could listen to it without knowing what the narrative is and really still love the songs.
Well, I would argue though that this is why, like Julian said, that I said this isn't a perfect movie.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of my main concerns. I mean, there's a little bit of like creepy stalkerness that is one of my other main concerns. But the Oscar Levant scenes are so magical.
Yeah.
Even the ones where he's playing piano and you see his face, they're amazing. When he's playing piano, the song "Tra La La" that he does with Gene Kelly is like that's screen magic. And sure, like the connective tissue to get there was not maybe up to scratch, but seeing that is great. And seeing the scene when there's no music in this scene. I mean, it builds up to a number, but the scene where Oscar Levant knows that Gene Kelly is in love with their buddy's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Gene Kelly doesn't know it, and his buddy doesn't know it. So they're all having a conversation about this new girl he's seeing, and Oscar Levant is just like,
That's a great.
that's some of the funniest stuff you'll ever see in a movie from
Yeah.
that time period. It's just amazing, and he doesn't say a word. He's just hamming it up the whole time, and it's just great because he's like lighting a cigarette, forgetting he has a cigarette, and he lights another one, and he's trying to drink his coffee, and it's just like, I understand what you're saying. The connective tissue isn't there, but there are some gems. Some
Yeah, but if
amazing
you're going to
gems.
be
Sorry,
so
Mr.
indulgent and go so far with it, like it's like, all right, like if we're going to have a 20-minute dance sequence or 15-minute dance sequence at the end, like we can't have actual tension with the story and like take it further.
Well,
like
it's not
just,
there. Yeah.
Right. Like it's a shame. Like I guess you kind of pointed it out that it didn't capitalize. It could have gone into the greats if it had just like ticked over one little
Correct.
bit.
Yeah. If
into-
the
right.
pieces just fit together.
This
a little
is
bit.
going way off, but
Let's hear it.
not really. It's still on about the movie. So one thing that was driving me nuts. I mean, we're talking about that shot where he's like, trying to drink the coffee and he's like trying to smoke the cigarette at the same time. Now throughout the whole film, was that like fake? Like there's a certain amount of fake cigarettes, I want to say, but in that scene, he started off with a fake cigarette and then it ends up being like towards the end because he lights so many, like there's real cigarettes at the end.
I mean, knowing the time period, I'm imagining they're all real cigarettes. I mean, why would they ever fake that?
Well, the only reason why I say that too is because whenever they puff you don't see like a light.
a lot of smoke.
They puff one smoke
yeah.
and there's no lingering smoke.
Yeah.
and there's no line of smoke
Movie
coming from this.
magic.
Yeah, but in that scene, he's like lighting up, like I gotta really have this cigarette.
Yeah, that's a
That's a great scene. I like it.
and Oscar Levant. I mean, I guess this is pretty much the only movie I know of. I mean, I'm sure there are others, but man, what a talent! The guy was so good. And what other movie would be indulgent enough to just let him play piano and just film it? Like, this guy is really playing that piano, and he's really a friend of George and Ira Gershwin's, like a contemporary of theirs. And to just see this guy at the top, I mean, the best of the best doing this, and with such charisma. I mean, like you said, it could have just been a bunch of music videos, but just that, having him is just, a wonder.
But he was, he's the poor man's Jerry Lewis. They couldn't get Jerry on there to go over
I mean,
to do his
why
nutty-
would Jerry ever go to
like,
France?
We've got a world
Why would
that
Jerry Lewis ever go to
swings.
France?
Yeah, they already
Was
love
it,
him.
was it shot in France or was it all
No, there was
set
there was
It's all
some
sets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some
Very
there was some
obviously
B-roll
sets.
in France, but that's it. Like it was all in
Yeah,
Hollywood.
and they did have like there were occasionally like real French people.
Yeah, like the little kids, I think, were really
brought some
French.
legitimacy, but that would kind of come in and out at random.
Yeah,
There would just be like everyone's speaking English. Occasionally somebody's French. 2 words are spoken.
Yeah, throughout the movie.
Bonjour.
Like, there's a lot of Americans in this.
Yeah, it's
Would
like,
you
it's an American in American Paris. Like,
Would you like a baguette? My sure.
but the so one of my favorite songs, honestly, of all time, "I Got Rhythm," is from this movie. And it's all little French kids singing it along with him, but they all emphasize "got" so much that it kind of throws off the song.
I got.
I'm
sorry.
Rhythm. I got music. I got dancing. Who
Yeah.
could ask for anything more? It's like this really weird.
It's like, damn, man, like Billy, you
Pierre,
Oh, I'm
do this
sorry.
right.
Pierre.
So who did it better? Who wore it better? American in Paris or Moonwalker?
oh,
American in Paris. Moonwalker's a 20-minute thing. It's fine.
No, Moonwalker
That's-
was a feature.
I think it's a short.
I think maybe it's
Moonwalker
60
was
minutes.
short.
I
I'm
think
thinking-
it might be 60 minutes.
The one with it's like all the music videos.
Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci. No, it's
Yeah,
like
I think it's
a
like
not a
60
feature
I think it's like 60
All right,
minutes.
I'm
not
looking
a
it
feature
in.
length.
Log it
I'm
up.
I'm looking
It's
it
not
up.
a feature length. Again with the ambition and the kind of aspirations. For
This movie was an hour too long. Hour and a half. Moonwalker, by the way.
Oh,
Hour and a
wow.
half?
Wow.
Well, it's because you're thinking of American Paris and thinking, that's a normal length movie, but it's not. It's a 3-hour movie.
Is it really a 3-hour movie?
Yeah, hour 55.
But for a movie to like I said, to go ahead and say we're gonna let this breathe and let Oscar Levant play like concert piano as a sequence in this movie, and then a few minutes later we're just gonna let Leslie Caron like just dance ballet, like that's what we're gonna go with. And I just think that it was gutsy at the time, and it's still gutsy to this day. Like that they were just like, we're gonna feature this art, and we're gonna elevate this movie to be art and feature it, in a kind of respectful way. I just hats off to them.
Speaking of hats, Gene
Mhm.
Kelly's cap, also a pretty bold choice.
Well, he's an American. That's why he's got to wear his baseball cap.
But he wears it like in this
Yeah, well,
wee
jaunty
kind of
angle.
way.
Because he's a cool artist, American.
Bonjour.
So, Julian, having been to Paris, what was your favorite part of this movie?
Well, I don't think the two are very related. It's sort of like Disney World Paris. It's all sets. It's very it's very
You didn't
vibrant.
like the Champs-Élysées scene?
It's very candy colored.
That could
you
have been
know?
a sewer anywhere.
But I did appreciate how colorful and fun it was, and I think it is fun just to watch, these people who are at the top of their game just do their thing and
Yeah.
and you can tell they're having fun with it.
And for them to say, like, yeah, we know this is actually an American movie, but we're going to feature, like, a really big pop star from France. Like, this guy, Georges Gutierrez, was like...
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, he was like the Al Jolson of France at the time. He's like a pretty big guy, pretty big star. And then to seek out this kind of, like, really French dancer, Gene Kelly was like... I forget the actress who was in it. She was supposed to be his love interest, but she ended up getting pregnant, so they were like, she can't dance in her state.
Did Gene Kelly get her
I'm
pregnant?
forgetting what her name is. She was in
That's probably the director who's
Singing in the
getting a
Rain.
divorce.
She's one of the Sid Charisse. Her name is Sid Charisse, and Sid Charisse couldn't be in the film. So he was like, well, good, we can get a legit French actress. And he went out and he found, he found, they saw this girl, Leslie Caron, who has had a huge, long career since this movie. She was a ballet, like in the French National Ballet or the Paris National, like some big ballet company. And they were like, let's bring her to Hollywood, see what happens. And, since then, she's been in movies all the way up until like the 90s and 2000s. She was in Chocolat. She's in.
Wow.
Yeah. She's been around a
So,
long time.
I think I've seen, Sound of Music, I've definitely seen, that was a movie musical. Was it a musical first? Or no, it was a movie first.
I think they made that as a movie yeah.
So, but then, I've seen that on stage since. And then, same with White Christmas, White Christmas I think of as more of another, it's an Irving Berlin musical mashup or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not all Irving Berlin. Bing Crosby writes a bunch of songs, yeah.
I like those two. I can see, I guess I don't seeing this musical outside of the context of the movie. Do you like?
I've seen it actually. They had a revive. They about a year and a half ago. They had a Broadway version of it. It was really pretty well done. What was masterfully done was the way they did the set changes and stuff was just so cool. The way they used the way they used projections and screens was just really, really cool. But it all comes, the same flaws that are in the movie end up being a part of this play. But what they did to try to kind of make it a little bit, give it a little more grit, I guess, was deal with the kind of post trauma of surviving through the war. Because there is a plot point in this movie that Leslie Caron's character feels kind of obligated to marry this guy because he helped her family out so much during
Part
the
of
war.
Resistance.
Yeah, and so she kind of feels obligated to kind of well, I guess I should marry him or something like that.
No, but she fell in love with him, though. He learned to love me. That's what she said.
Yeah.
He was an uncle who took care of me.
Yes. But,
It was a different time.
Yet more complicated things that make this Brain Candy not an amazing movie. It is an amazing movie, but not a masterpiece.
Also, the patron lady, she's pretty straightforward about her interests. I'm talking about the American.
Oh, the lady who's the
patron.
patron. Oh, the patron of. Gotcha.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that she's very she's straightforward. She's like, yeah, you know what? I'll see if I can have a relationship with this guy, make it work. I can use my money.
Yeah.
However, it's fine. Which is
I like that. I like the honesty and boldness of it.
And it's his character who's kind of an asshole. Just basically he's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to have a thing with you. I'm with someone else, sort of. But then as soon as there's trouble, he's just kind of revenge.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I got to say, those are pretty cool, subtle things to have in a movie from that time. If you think about it, that's not out of place in a show like Girls. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm making it more simple, but that complicated of a relationship and then the reactions of feeling spurned by one and just running to the other, I feel like that's actually quite complicated in a movie of this, in a Hollywood dance
he's an
musical.
anti-hero, one of your favorite kind of heroes, Keith.
Well, no, I don't consider him a hero at all in this movie. I think
He's
that
the
the
villain.
music is the hero.
And the dance.
Yeah.
The dance is the hero.
No, he does some really cool moves in
Yeah,
that.
he always does.
Well, the one where he leans over and holds his hat. And he's
Well, that's the ballet move.
You've been shot by Champs-Élysées.
No,
But going back to something you hit on earlier, where you're saying, they took a bunch of songs that don't necessarily seem related and kind of pigeonholed, shoehorned them into a movie. That's how Singing in the Rain happened, and that's undeniably one of the greatest musicals.
Yeah,
of all
but
time.
they built a framework around it to so the story holds up and the characters hold up within that. They made this.
It's great, but knowing that these are kind of songs that were kind of we have this stack of songs, let's make a musical out of it. Knowing that, you see it differently and you see the stitching, but it's still an amazing.
Yeah, it's better than Mamma Mia, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's also, even though it's a modern equivalent, it's full of weird, creepy stuff because she ends up singing ABBA love songs to her
dad.
potential dads,
Right.
and they're trying to make the lyrics imply something else, but they're clearly
But see, I
clearly
think-
a love song. It's
I
weird.
guess what I think of is I think of Mamma Mia and I was about to say Dog Day Afternoon and American in Paris in the same kind of vein where it's
yes,
it's very just kind of tacked on. Whereas
Except-
Rock of Ages, for instance, is also pop music collaborated, but the structure is it's a bunch of live bands and stuff. And so,
So the
it
structure
so
is built better to
just
handle
like Singing in the Rain. It's like
their song and
the
dance
structure, yeah, and
Hollywood
they're
people.
writers, and they
Yeah.
kind of like the structure supports the songs
Right.
and makes it work. And
Yeah, it's like it's more. It makes it more this music more diegetic or whatever. It's
Right.
like it's like in the story they're singing a song now. You
Right.
know, it's not like the song is the story.
Yeah.
right, it's not sung through or something,
Yeah.
which is becomes troublesome when you're again like if you have this is our Beatles narrative, like we made this weird. What was the Across the Universe? That's why that fell flat for me. Was like we're gonna make this song about the draft.
She came in through the kitchen window, or what? She came
Yeah.
in through the bathroom window. It's like, no, there's a character that came in through the bathroom window, so we're gonna. I probably got the lyric wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I like this.
Who's that guy with the
what I was trying-
tambourine? Oh, that's Mr. Tambourine Man.
I was gonna say, even though this is in the same like genre or what class or whatever as Mamma Mia, I like this better. This still has more charm and more skill and more artfulness to it. Like even because Mamma Mia, I mean, I saw it on Broadway because somebody's parent took me to it, and then I saw the movie adaptation part of it because it was on an airplane, and the movie wasn't any better. It was just, and it was full of charismatic movie stars, but they were just kind of like, I'm a charismatic movie star. Like they weren't doing anything.
I'm getting a check for this.
Maybe that goes against my original point in that had they tried to make the story more like cohesive, that the music would have seemed more forced than which it doesn't seem forced. It just seems sort of there. It would have seemed forced and gone further into that like messier territory.
Yeah. I think too the fact that it's very it's very stagey and set like. The camera's not very dynamic. Everything looks like a set, but it's like super colorful.
Right.
Like all of that, like you're not. It puts it in this kind of surreal plane where I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. You know,
it's like the albums, like all the different. It's like 4 or 5 different musicians that they took for like West Side Story when they just like came up with that idea. Like, we'll just throw this together.
But yeah, West Side Story is like
West Side Story is written to go.
I know, but like that's when everything works and it's
no, but see, but that's
and it's successful.
But that's the like.
But as a movie,
I'm
I would take An American in Paris over it.
Oh, I
would disagree
The
on that
movie?
too. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
West Side Story is awesome.
I would.
You like the fact that it's like the like
Romeo and
milk
Juliet.
toast white American girl being like Puerto Rican.
That's
and
fine.
Right, Mr. Mister? That's fine, right?
Yeah, Natalie Wood, she's such a Puerto Rican.
Yep.
Because you couldn't cast a real Puerto Rican to sing and dance.
Exactly.
Well, why would they ever
Well,
do that?
they only cast a real
well,
French
I know.
person because the
Yeah.
other one was pregnant, is what you just. Well, but the thing is, the big difference there, Jules, is like I was joking. West Side Story was written for West Side Story.
Yes, yeah, I know
it's
that.
not like
Yes.
a bunch of. It's like it's a real musical in terms of like
Yes.
See, but
everything.
It's
I didn't-
also
I
like
didn't
visually
know-
more dynamic.
but I didn't know that. Like
It was a
going
musical?
into it, that these are exist. Like,
Pre-existing songs.
yeah, I was like, wait, is this where the song is from? I was like, no. I don't know.
Well,
I
it
had
is
like,
where the song, I mean,
you
all
know,
the lyrics.
the lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But it didn't. It's for me, it didn't really like matter. Like it didn't. I'm not like a big musical watching guy, so
Except
it just
except
felt
Beat
natural.
Street and Breakin'.
Except for
Yeah.
those two, yeah.
In Crush Groove.
And Crush Groove
Yeah.
and Wild Style.
And The Wiz.
Yeah. Oh, The Wiz, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
The
of course.
Wiz. Yeah.
JC Superstar.
No, The Wiz was one of my favorites
Oh,
as a
yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
I loved it. I even had the 3D Master, what is that? The Viewmaster. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But
He's on down the road.
so there was a scene in this where like he's stalking the Quran. What's her name?
Yeah, Leslie Caron.
And he like showed up at her work and she's like really annoyed. And then there's like this lady who has like a husband in Milwaukee, but she's getting perfume and she's like, I don't know what perfume to get. And he says, well, I'm a guy, so let me smell. So he's smelling this lady's perfume and he's like, you got to get this one. This is the one. He's like, this it's not even a contest. This is the one. You got to be careful. All the guys are going to be, you're something to the effect of your husband should be careful because all the guys
Yeah.
are going to be after you in Paris. You won't be able to leave. And he's like, you're going to need some protection. And I don't know. The way he said it, it's like, he means condoms.
Well,
I don't know if
it would
I don't
be
know if that
sheep's
word was
lambskin at
Yeah.
the time.
Well, I don't know if
A
back then
sheath.
that they used the
I
term
know.
protection.
He would
I know,
sheath
I know.
his sword. You'll have to sheath the
he meant
swords
a
that come
Back
stabbing
then
at
he
you.
meant a gun.
but this is the point though. Like, it's like now watching this film with in this day,
Yeah.
like this, like the creepiness and
Well, it's especially heightened after the,
Yeah.
all the Weinstein stuff that's coming out lately, and all the, just this deluge of, people stepping forward and finally, like calling out some of this bad behavior,
Yeah.
and to see it kind of like being almost normal in this movie, is kind of bad. But there's a fine line between
But that-
sexual harassment and just being persistent.
Yeah, but that's
And this
that's
one
the,
crosses it, I think, at some point.
but that's the like one of the excuses that those guys use. Is like,
Sure,
hey, it's
yeah.
a different time. It's,
Yeah. Well,
but-
I mean, so Weinstein said, "I'm from a different time." It's just like,
That's
yeah,
it,
but
yeah.
you're here now.
Yeah, so
Like
you should have
when
left.
these things happened, it wasn't the
Yeah.
'60s.
Yeah.
It
You
was
should have
like
left
last
your
week.
shitty behavior back in the '60s. dude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was brought up in the '80s. You don't see me snorting coke all the time and going back to 1985.
See,
I mean, Gene Kelly did Xanadu, and he doesn't work anymore.
He did do Xanadu. All those songs were written for that movie.
A gem, a true gem.
See, Xanadu is weird enough that like that one is like cult watchable.
Sure,
and
yeah,
fun.
yeah. There's parts of that really hold up, like visually.
The main song is really good too.
It's true.
But that's my take, Mister. So, had you ever seen this before?
no, I haven't.
Had you seen many or any Gene Kelly movies? Is that something you?
I've just seen the one where, oh wait, was it him or maybe it was somebody else? But he's like dancing with Jerry from Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, and like the little clips of like this is break dancing, but Gene Kelly did it too.
Yeah.
back in the day, and then before Gene Kelly, and before
Yeah, because
So
there's
he has some really cool moves, like even that where he's like hopping over his own leg.
Yeah.
It looks unreal.
because even recently they were like I saw a clip where he's like, "What time is it? It's showtime!" and he starts dancing on a train. It
on the
was really
subway.
good.
Yeah.
He's like dancing on the poles and like climbing upside down.
when they always ask what time is it, I'm always looking at my watch. Like
it's
8:25.
You're like trying to yell it over the boombox.
Yeah, I'm like,
It's 7:45.
yeah,
If
somebody
you
tell
stop dancing and playing your loud music, I can tell you what time it is.
the best is like now like you have those little animations in the subway.
Yeah.
And it says, "Don't do this," and like showtime is for other time or whatever it's called. I
There's
don't
like a guy walking on the
know. He's walking on the
For
ceiling.
those listeners who are not from New York City, we're describing
A type of busking. That happens.
busking that happens on the New York City subways, where a group of like two or
An
three
ambitious
kids
troop of
will come
young
on the
dancers.
train, start playing music on a boombox, and start dancing acrobatically
using
in,
a train
in a
car.
very packed train car. Generally, they're not that well received.
Oh, well, I mean,
Although occasionally they knock it
I
out of the
always
park.
enjoy it. I mean, I'm not always happy when I'm sitting too close, but
Yeah, and then
I'm
their
always just
foot
like,
goes flying by
what
your
if-
nose. And
I
that sort
would
of-
just be sitting here picking my nose, but instead I get to watch these people do these amazing.
Yeah, if I'm
I
like
just can't hear
listening
my
to something-
podcast.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah. If you're sitting here trying to listen to us,
Yeah,
and
there's-
suddenly hear it's showtime.
Yeah, if it was more of like a mime dance show without music, that'd be all right.
As 1/3 of this podcasting like Hydra head, I give you the permission to pause it and watch the Showtime
I'd
dance.
say no,
guys.
because then you'll have to pay them. Don't make direct eye contact.
I like the, I like the Showtime guys, but I don't like the guys in the park or on the sidewalk who are like, everybody gather around, and they make this wall
Oh,
of people,
yeah.
and then they really like pressure you.
They've
to-
started to put down cones and stuff.
yeah.
too.
Started. It's been going on forever. But
But
yeah.
getting back to the movie,
Mhm.
Mister, having yourself been an American in Paris,
Yeah,
how does this compare to your experience?
It's pretty much the same.
Yeah,
It
he was
was
an
really-
artist.
Yes, I was.
You
an
had a
artist,
patron who-
and I told Kathy this too, and I said, "Wow, this is pretty much my life."
Yeah, like I was a
On
creep
film.
back then.
I was a creep. But
Except instead of Gershwin's songs, it was the Pet Shop Boys.
yeah, and New Order, and
Go west.
yeah, West End Girls. Yeah, but it's like a Willy Wonka version of Paris. Like the set is just so candy-like, and I get it too because it's the color and so. But one question I have is this wasn't in widescreen, right? This is like
Oh, I think
still-
it was cinema. I think it was CinemaScope.
Oh,
yeah,
was it CinemaScope?
Yeah.
Then I watched the.
Yeah, but I don't
wrong
think
one.
that's the real cut, is it? Because
I don't
Yeah.
know. So it's hard to tell on the internets. No, everything's this aspect ratio. There's all bunch of clips from all different people.
Who knows?
Yeah, see, even in this best cinematography reel, it's So I think it was not. I think that was pre-CinemaScope actually, because that didn't come
That's
till
what I was
later.
wondering.
Got it.
That's
Yeah.
when like TV started competing, and they were like, "How are we gonna be bigger than the TV?" You know, and they were like, "Let's make it wide."
Yeah.
And that's where like anamorphic lenses first came on the
Yeah,
scene because
one-
they
one-
took this format, the more like squarish format, and they put just an adapter on there to then squeeze, and then they would squeeze the image to get a wide image out of a square film stock,
Right.
and then
It's a little
reproject it.
CinemaScope, yeah.
It was crazy.
But this clip you're watching, Jules, can you? What's the name of it? I found this on. It's called.
It's
And
called
the Oscar goes to
An American in
An
Paris.
American in Paris, and it's basically like a kind of a neat little history and trivia type of a podcast that reviews gives you a little bit of backstory to the thing,
wow.
and it's really the one for An American in Paris is really good.
I-
the detail this guy goes into is.
I
pretty
did
amazing.
say like, that looks like my apartment, like with the windows open and
That's
and it's
cool.
really small.
And in addition to his hat, he wears all white, which as a painter I found kind of bold.
Yeah, but you're outside in the
well,
hot heat all day.
listen,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
on the like super clean Paris streets.
Mhm.
All white, but he had a red shirt underneath.
A red handkerchief or something,
it's-
right? Or was
yeah.
it a shirt? Yeah.
Yeah.
An ascot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But Holt, so you're saying like, just don't even waste your time. Just go watch Moulin Rouge.
no,
is what
I'd
you're
say what I would actually say is that if this was like a super cut with a bunch of other like if you're watching like Best of Gene Kelly, Best of Gershwin, like dance numbers and stuff, that's the way to enjoy it. There's probably like a suit like if someone were to put this together with a bunch of other clips, like you could watch this in pieces on YouTube and get the experience because you'll see the set pieces, you'll see the dance numbers. You don't need to see how they got from A to B.
Yeah, but
And
on
you'll miss all the
YouTube, it's
and,
like-
and it'll take away all the creepy stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, but on YouTube, it's the size of like an envelope. I mean, like you can
then you
full
could-
screen
Not if
it,
you
but
wa-
you're not getting it. You're not getting the. It's not.
Hey, I've seen John's TV. It's pretty.
and I put it on YouTube on my TV.
Yeah, good for you.
So the artifacting is like, wow.
Yeah.
so big.
Like,
Yeah.
It's very
ooh,
artful.
I can see all four of them
Yeah,
MPs.
Yeah, look at it. Look at the
It's
6
art and
pixels
it's
that make
fact.
up Gene Kelly. They're as big as my head. Yeah. So how can people watch American in Paris?
They
You
can't.
just said it. Watch the clips on YouTube, I guess.
Well, I mean, in terms of otherwise, like it's not.
or
you
watch
can buy
the
it on
like
iTunes.
crazy pirate version that Keith linked to.
No, I think
that
I
was
put
even
that
better.
link up because I had to find a version.
Or they
What
could-
was it?
Like a create the. Link.
Oh, Holt. Yeah, Holt.
I
put
just
that
like
link.
dug
Yeah,
up a version.
that was not so good.
I found my version on like those Usenet type. Places.
Yeah.
It's on if you act now, I think it's on like Stars on Demand
Okay.
or so, one of the
of
movie
streaming
channels
services.
right
Yeah,
now.
it's-
It's
I
on
think-
demand.
Yeah, I'm not on Stars. right,
Maybe
so-
it's not Showtime, but I think it's either
Probably
Stars
Stars.
or Epics or something. One of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
I think like
but it's on
Amazon had it.
iTunes and Amazon and all
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not
Too-
streaming.
It-
You have to buy it, rent it. or
It,
buy
it was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it still is.
You can rent it on iTunes for $3 or $4 and buy it for $13.
There you go.
And I'm sure you can rent it for $3 on YouTube and Amazon. They're
Or-
pretty good about that.
Or people could just direct message me and I could come over to their house and
Reenact it.
reenact the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if you're a 19-year-old, he can hit on you.
But he's gonna have to shave his head so he can really get back to his Paris days.
Oh yeah. Well, I shaved my head because I couldn't afford a haircut, and I didn't know how to speak like proper French to like explain what type of haircut I wanted.
You know, le haircut. Le haircut.
High and tight. Quoi, quoi?
How would you say it, Jules, in French? Like Mr. walks in. How would he say, I would like a haircut, please?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how Mr. Mister would say it.
Well, how would you say it as Jules?
Je voudrais une coupe de cheveux.
Coupe de cheveux. Okay.
Coupe
cool.
du jour, huh?
Yep. My uncle had one of those flies.
Yeah.
Coupe du jour.
Alouette,
Cadillac.
coupe du jour.
It's coupe de cheveux. Arrêtez.
Yeah, alouette. Gentil alouette. Like a happy head.
So it sounds like everybody liked this movie. Holt thinks it's dumb.
No, I think
But,
it's fine.
But we'll see.
It's-
That's
I
what
think
we're
it's-
talking about.
I
This
think
is
it
why
fits
it's hard to
It's
say.
candy colored.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to say,
think it
hey,
fits
watch this
Brain
Brain Candy. that I take joy in.
If you enjoy some good song and dance,
Yeah.
then you will enjoy the movie.
Yep.
I could
agree.
definitely see the brain candy in it.
Yep, totally. I do. I agree.
I think the colors and you know it's from a time where like colors was a big deal, and it does have like.
Well, they didn't have colors till just recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my grandparents, they never grew up in color. It was just.
Yeah. If for no other reason, go on YouTube now and just look up the last dance sequence. It's really something else, and the music is a true American classic.
And that Harlequin costume.
Well, the
Yeah,
last
wow.
dance sequence, like if you watch the YouTube clip, I don't think it starts with that.
That party's like rocking too.
dude, I would go to that
People
party.
were nuts.
Yeah,
Well, it's
yeah.
also
Like there's this one guy throwing like
throwing
ladies off the balcony.
off the not just once but 3 times they
It
go
was
at
like a
it.
party.
And yeah, it was a party. And then like in the background, just this guy like throwing like a whole bottle of champagne like down this lady's throat. And I'm like, this is weird, man.
Well, they said it's like a bacchanalia. It's like a Saturnalia, right?
What's a what? A what?
Like a crazy dance fun
Like a
party.
Mardi Gras, like festival.
It was a
Yeah.
French Tuesday.
It's like everybody's wearing masks, so orgy.
Lundi, Mardi,
Yeah, how would you say everybody's wearing mask orgy in French?
Mardi Gras.
How do you say "le eyes wide shut"?
Emmanuel.
The international language of Cinemax. So check it out. Go out there
Yeah.
and check it out. And
Good
maybe
brain
you agree.
candy pick.
Maybe you agree it's brain candy, or maybe you are like Holt and you're like, I'd much rather watch the ABBA
Moonwalker.
one. I'd much rather watch Moonwalker and
See
Joe Pesci shoot a Tommy gun.
Spiders.
I only like musicals where people turn into cars,
Yeah.
transform.
I mean, had he just done that at the end, and then she realizes the car that she's in with her fiance is
wait,
Gene Kelly.
Wait, we need to figure this out. So there's a version that you've seen. It just ends with the flower.
That might have been a fever dream. I feel like
That's when he just always turns it off. He's like, "Oh, song's over."
Yeah.
Click.
Like,
Yeah.
I
mean, honestly, that
Yeah.
little cap end is so because he goes into this madness
so
cycle
weird,
of
yeah.
dancing,
yeah.
and it's pretty clear that he's jumped off the balcony and died.
I
And
was
they're like,
thinking,
wait,
like-
this was too dark. We can't just have his broken body on the stairs.
So,
Yeah.
So let's
and
film
her
this.
crying over
Yeah,
it.
So-
let's film the car pull up and
right, because I was like, this is dumb. Like she just shows up, and the guy's like, yeah, you know what? It's okay. You can marry him, but it doesn't.
He understands.
None of that.
He's loved her since
Yeah.
the war, and
So-
he's like, you
so
know
it
what?
makes
I
more
actually
sense.
love you
grooming
more like
2
a
or 3
father.
girls like him.
So it makes more sense, like what John just said. Like I love fan like interpretations where it's like, you know what? He really didn't. He just jumped off.
So, in the words of Jason Mantzoukas, this is a real Jacob's Ladder situation. Yeah.
And the rose or the flower, the red flower, it's just him exploded on the pavement.
Right. Yeah, like it would have faded out of the flower to the red of his blood with that
Yeah.
Harlequin costume
Yeah.
on the
And
stairs
that's why,
below.
and that's it makes a striking image of like black and white and then just red all over.
Yeah, like a newspaper.
Like a nun trapped in a revolving door. Is
a
that
nun,
the?
a nun with her spear through her head trying to go through a revolving door. Keith, good pick. Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Who could
All right.
ask for anything more? Who could ask for anything more? La même chose en français. J'ai du rythme, j'ai de la musique, j'ai ma chérie. Who could ask for anything more? J'ai des daisies dans green pastures. J'ai ma chérie. Who could ask for anything more? Old man trouble, I won't find him. You won't find him hanging round my door.
And there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch, so I sketch on pages and hope that some catch the thoughts of my inverted worded music. No trial and error, just emotion.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of The New You Show. I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho, and you can find me on Instagram at board_ghost, and you can find my RPG podcast at boardghost.com. You can find my book club podcast at woundandstab.com. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find some of my artwork on earthlingkeith.com. Julian?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at beautifuljules. And how about you, mister?
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm on Twitter now.
Whoa!
Yeah.
You were like, finally, 280 characters. Now I can speak.
Yeah. About
I was
time.
waiting for the perfect moment, actually. I'm like, there's just too little.
You were waiting till
Or
Twitter was
too
truly
much.
over,
Yeah.
and now you're like, now it's my time.
But now I'm on Twitter. It's Mr. Says Hi. Is that how it's done? Or Matt Rodriguez at Mr. Says Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So before we get into what's coming up next week and sign off here, I got something that was new to me.
Well, what's new
What
to
is
you,
it?
John?
What's new to you?
I went to the Draft House and I saw Thor Ragnarok.
Nice.
All right.
And it was very fun. It was very 80s, very playful. Same director who did What We Do in the Darkness,
What We Do in the Shadows.
in the Shadows, that vampire movie.
With
He's a-
Jermaine Clement.
He's a Kiwi director.
From New
Do
Zealand.
they like that? Is that okay to call? Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
You can say Kiwi to a person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only if you're from New Zealand.
Yeah,
for
like
God's
me.
sake.
If you've been there, you can say it.
Got it. Okay.
There's only like 4 million of them.
Yeah, what can they do?
But he's a New Zealand director. Funny. He actually cameos as one of the voices as a character, and it's funny because his character is almost exactly like Chris Lilly's Summer Heights High Tonga character.
What? What is
And-
this? What are these words
wait.
you're putting together?
It's
Summer Heights High?
It's
What?
an
what's-
HBO like comedy series. I'll show you guys some
Okay.
clips after this.
That's something else that's new to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's not new because I haven't seen it.
and I
but it
probably have
sounds
talked
new.
about it. And then, so it's like, and I was talking to someone else, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I thought it was this person, but it seems like he's like using a very recognizable speech pattern and like voice thing in this one character. But the movie was really fun. It was just like very 80s. All the Kirby art is in there. They even get the like globules in a couple parts.
Kirby Dots.
Yeah, Kirby dots. It's cute. It's fun. It's like it's in the vein of like the Homecoming movie, the Spider-Man Homecoming.
Is it? Did you see Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2? Is it kind of along those lines where it's
I think it's
mostly a comedy with
yeah,
adventure?
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. And I'd say it's a little tighter than Guardians because it's like a character who you're following and he's kind of goofy the whole time versus like a cast of characters. Like it's a little tighter and you can just get these silly characters who can come in and go out. So like Jeff Goldblum's character is really fun, and you get just enough of them. And like I was saying, the director's character Korg is really fun, and you just like they aren't so tied into the story that you just don't have a lot of moving parts, and you don't have to get a whole lot of emotion or anything. It just can be fun. And like the first Thor movie was just fine. The second Thor movie was terrible, and this one is really fun and good.
Well, I feel like they kind of found out what they were supposed to do with Thor. I think
Mhm.
during one of the Avengers movies where he kind of became a lot more of a like, oh, you know what? He's kind of a person out of place, and
Right.
that's kind of funny because he's also this god strength
Right.
person. So I'm glad they went that way with it.
Yeah, I think they kind of found their tone for space stuff and like
Mhm.
things that are gods or whatever. Like, like basically if you're Stephen Strange and it's magic and it's like you're dealing with the devil, basically, you can stay kind of moody if you're Doctor Strange. But if you're like,
He shows up in the movie, right?
yeah, but again, it's like it's just for funny character moments kind of
Got it.
stuff. Like,
Oh yeah, that's why. Because at the end of the Doctor Strange movie,
Mhm.
that's when Thor comes.
right,
To, okay.
and they tie that together. So there's just like they've kind of found like these are the characters where it's okay to be a little darker. These are the characters where it's like this is the straight story, and then these are the characters where we can just really have fun with them. Because if we're otherwise they just get too heady and just there's no grounding or anything.
Well, I
to
like
grab
that they
onto.
were just like, I mean, it makes perfect sense if you're some of these filmmakers because you're like, hey, what is DC doing wrong? Like, oh yeah, everything is like so serious. Let's
Right.
just make this thing fun, and that's what they do. They make they make these fun
Right.
movies. You don't have as high of an opinion of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as I do, but I find those to be hilarious. I mean, just like
I think they're really funny and
they're
fun.
just like they're not only like pretty great action movies, but they're just like so much. I mean, I laugh out loud at those more than a lot of movies.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think like of so far the best one across the board has been Spider-Man: Homecoming
Really?
because it's just
Wow.
like the
I haven't
villain.
seen that. I've
the
just been
villain
putting
is
it
pretty
off.
good.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
The like it's
you know-
one where it hits the tone of the characters too, where it's like, you know, this is who Spider-Man's always been, like an insecure kid
JP Spiderman.
who yeah, who just like who the action sequences don't matter. It's all
Yeah.
about the wisecracking.
Well, I kind of feel like they did that. I mean, they've been on that trajectory since the second Avengers movie, or since the Civil War movie, I should say. Which is that an Avengers movie, or is that just
It's
that's
like
a Captain America,
Captain America,
one?
yeah.
Since after that movie, or
No,
starting with that
they were.
movie?
There's a lot of yuck
Spider-Man,
yucks in that
yeah,
movie.
Spider-Man,
Really?
that was great. That's
but,
what sold
but you
me.
know, you look at like
For some reason, it
Ant-Man, which
looked
was
like
like all a
intense.
joke.
There is a lot of intense stuff in it, but it's
Yeah.
but because it's so intense, the comedy like is just that
Sings a
much.
little more,
Like
yeah.
you want
Yeah.
a break in the tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like Spider-Man is all like tone appropriate to the character. The action is like fine, but you don't need it. Like it's all like it's just a vehicle
Well,
for
that's a
more
good
wisecracking.
recommendation. I'm glad you said that because
It's-
I've been putting it off just because I don't know. I saw the clip where
Like,
they're like,
another Spider-Man.
Right.
well, no, I'm fine. I mean, I saw him in the Avengers one, and I was like, oh, well, that's a pretty cool Spider-Man. But then when they in the preview, they like cut the Staten Island ferry in half, and he's holding it together. I'm like, that's not Spider-Man. So I'm glad to know that in spite of that, I should still see it.
Yeah, I would see it. It's definitely. I mean,
Why do they put that in every Spider-Man movie? The scene where he like stops a train or something, or he like
well, because the idea is that he isn't Superman, and so to go to those lengths to do that kind of thing is something that's like almost beyond his abilities. And I mean, do you want a spoiler alert on this
sure,
one?
go for it.
He fails.
Yeah.
He can't. He needs Iron Man and those guys to show up and actually help him save the ferry because
Yeah.
he can't fucking do it because
Yeah.
he's just a kid.
Oh, whoa, man.
Like-
calm down, man. He's just dropping that F-bomb on
Yeah,
Spider-Man
he's just a
because-
fucking kid.
because he messed up.
He's a
he
piece
just-
of
fucking
he's a piece of shit kid from across the river.
I mean, so what? He couldn't put the boat back together again. It doesn't like.
But it
Yeah,
was
let's see
also-
you hold a boat
yeah,
together.
Yeah,
But it's also
come on,
his,
Holt
it's
with
his
the boat.
fault. It's his fault the boat got cut in half too. Like, you know, it was a humbling experience for him in the movie, and
that's when he got all gloomy and had the black Spider-Man suit, and he
no, that's
started
when
like
he puts the mask in the trash can and walks away in the rain.
Yeah. And then he starts delivering pizzas.
Yeah.
And he has that like darker hair that it's all kind of
Yeah.
like slicked over on the side.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I'd say the first two Spider-Mans were like a Sam Raimi vehicle. The other two are totally just a waste of film.
There was a third
third
Spider-Man
one
that
was
Sam Raimi
terrible,
did,
yeah.
and then there were
And-
two of the other.
The third one I found amusing, but not for the right reason.
Yeah. It was like it was like Italian Spider-Man.
here's my
or
question.
Turkish Spider-Man.
Is the third Spider-Man of the Sam Raimi version worse than the third Batman of the Nolan?
Wait, the
I
third Spider-Man versus the third Batman?
Yeah.
I would say
The
I still.
Bane Batman.
I think I might prefer the third Spider-Man just because, like, I was still like entertained,
Yeah.
even though it was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the third Batman movie, I was like, why is this so long?
Why is this movie happening?
It was like too self-important and
Yeah, it
serious
really
and
was.
boring. It was just boring. That was its main
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
It was like, and just getting into all these big conceptual things, and I'm like,
Was it
this is a
conceptual?
Batman movie, for
Yeah.
Christ's sake.
Yeah, that's the one where he dies.
End of rant.
The end. So yeah, that's Thor. Very fun. It's like a heavy metal cover all the way. Like it's just
Awesome.
fun. Like, you know, and
Good.
they play like immigrant song, and it's just like fun and silly. And it's like during action scene, like it's where you need it to be.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, that's the other thing that they got right with the Guardians of the Galaxy. That
Cool
they,
music.
yeah, they
Yeah.
were like, we don't need to make like John Williams-esque like soundtracks
Right.
to all
Yeah.
these movies. Let's just like
license
Quentin
some shit.
Tarantino them and put some like great soundtracks
Right.
together.
And at the
And
same,
we
I
have
mean,
so much money. Let's just spend it on music.
Yeah.
right. And honestly, like with those, they just like a lot of times they don't even like try too hard, which is fine. Like basically they're just hitting the same tone that like, you know, in this sad scene in the CW, they use this song. And in this sad scene in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we're going to use the same song. And it's
No.
it's
No,
tone
Guardians of the
appropriate.
Galaxy is actually the soundtrack is pretty neat because all the songs come from like a specific period of time.
Yeah, the
So it's
OC.
kind of, you can't just go like everybody hurts sometimes. You got to really find like a neat song from that era to work like that. If you've seen
your eyes,
Guardians,
light the heat,
it wasn't in there.
fade into you.
But the that Cat Stevens song that ends Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2, spoiler alerts, like almost makes me cry. That song is like
tea for the Tillerman.
No, it's
wine for his son.
Nope.
Steak for the
It's the one where he goes,
who makes...
if you want to sing out, sing out.
Oh, right.
And
from,
if you want to be free,
you know why that makes
be
you
free.
cry, though? It's because it's from
Yeah,
car
Harold and
commercial.
Maude.
Harold and Maude.
No, it's from that
No,
car
no, it's-
commercial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a car commercial where the guy drives the
Yeah,
his modified Porsche hearse
Yeah,
off
right
the
off the cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because
you're like, man,
his
I want to
old
drive a
lady
car.
love has turned to dust.
Yeah.
No, but
Just
the,
like that.
She reached completion.
Yeah.
I think it's called Father's Song to Son or something like that.
Wait,
Beautiful. That
that's
Cat
a-
Stevens song.
It's in the, just called If You Wanna.
No, Guardians of the Galaxy song at the end. It's not really if you want to sing out, sing out. It's I think it's called a father's song to a son.
Oh
or
yeah,
something.
yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
It's a wonderful song.
A planet song to a sun.
Yeah. All right. So Thor Ragnarok, it's in theaters probably still now. In
Oh yeah, it's
this is in
definitely
a couple
still.
weeks. So yeah, it's still playing.
And
I saw
you
it in
can
the Draft
pirate
House.
it
Very
anytime.
fun. That's right.
If so, well, I mean, we do need to move on. But just if you were to say, hey, you got one weekend to see a movie, would you say go see Blade Runner Part 2 or Thor Ragnarok?
If it has to be in the theater,
Willow.
and you aren't like if you're not going to be able to see Blade Runner,
No. I mean, Blade Runner's out right now. Like,
No, that's what I'm saying. But if you could, like, if this was like you're not going to see the other one in the theater, is the idea, right?
You're making the choice.
I would say Blade Runner because
'Cause it's
Blade
real
Runner
pretty.
is visual. And not that Thor isn't beautiful and has like fun poppy colors and looks really good. It's just not a.
Okay.
It's a Blade Runner does not hold up in the non-visual departments as much as it does in the visual department.
Yeah.
And so to really enjoy the best part of that movie, you want to see it in the theater.
And if you love the Blade Runner world and you love it visually and all that stuff, I would definitely check it out.
I mean,
What
it's
about-
basically a
so
VR
does-
experience.
One more question,
Basically.
and then we can move on. Does Beta Ray Bill show up?
Yes.
For real?
No.
Ah!
But they do mention when he gets turned into a frog.
What's this on Thor?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that comic where Thor turned into a frog?
Oh, okay. Wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
Yep, it happened.
With Beta Ray is the guy with the he
He's
looks
got
like
like
an
a
alien.
bird head.
He's almost
yeah.
like a skull. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it because Thor's like a prince? Is that the joke or what?
No,
No.
there was just a whole, and it went on for quite a while. Or was it a spin-off of like Spider-Ham?
No,
I
no,
don't-
he was just a turn.
But how does
into a
he
frog.
turn back into Thor?
Magic,
Yeah, magic.
Not a princess
We
kissing
need
him?
we need
This
this is where
There's
we
a,
Come
Thor's a
on.
woman now too. In the
Yeah.
comics,
Yeah.
which is a really good run. But anyhow, that is that.
That is
Yep.
that. Thor
Uh,
Ragnarok. Go see it.
Yeah.
Says John
So
Hall.
next week we're gonna wrap it up with Jules's pick. What are you bringing to the table, Jules?
I'm bringing YouTube.
Whoa.
Well,
that's a lot.
it's more like YouTube tech reviews, and pretty much if you just watch any YouTube tech review, you know you'll
Get the point.
get
Yeah.
the point, and I'll talk about
And where
it more
and where
next
can
week.
they get that? iTunes or
YouTube?
can you send them? Can you send them a? Is there a video reviewing?
We'll send you a link to
those
iTunes.
videos on iTunes.
Possibly,
The best
Not sure.
reviews.
maybe on Vimeo.
All right. So to find out more about the pick from this week, our previous picks, and that pick for next week, go to newtoyou.com. You can follow us on Twitter at newtoyoushow. Sometimes we tweet. And I think that's kind of the big ones. You can find us via the website, and you can find us via the Twitter.
And iTunes.
And we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on most of the major players. You can subscribe, follow us on all those things. And if you like the show, let people know. Recommend it to them because it may not be new, but maybe it's new to you.
It's all about the music. This pitiful life is 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 all about the music.
Be with him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not dead. They're two separate instances.